Starts off with this line, the void of a vacuum, captured by a glass envelope. And it's talking about vacuum tubes.
Vacuum tubes, huh?
Yeah, and I know it sounds a little, I don't know, mysterious. But vacuum tubes were essentially like the ancestors of modern transistors.
Oh, okay.
So you know how we have all these tiny transistors in our computers and phones today?
Right.
Well, vacuum tubes were kind of like the giant fragile versions of those.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were these big glass tubes that controlled the flow of electricity, and they were like essential for those early computers to work.
Wow, so they were like really important back then.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, what's interesting is that vacuum tubes weren't just used in computers.
Really?
Yeah, they were also used in like radios, TVs, radar systems, all sorts of stuff.
I guess that makes sense since they were like the main electronic component at the time, right?
Exactly. So without those glowing, humming tubes, like our world would look totally different.
Wow, it's amazing how something so simple could have such a big impact.
Right. Okay, so then the poem goes on to say, observing the code of its binary vestment. And that might sound a little,
A little cryptic.
yeah, a little cryptic, but it's talking about binary code.
Oh, binary code.
Yeah, and I know sometimes people hear binary code and they're like, ugh, math.
Yeah, it can sound intimidating.
But it's actually a pretty simple concept. It's just a system that uses two digits, 0 and 1.
Right, like on or off.
Exactly, like a light switch. So 0 is off, 1 is on.
And all those zeros and ones can like create instructions for the computer.
Yeah. And it's amazing how, like, something so simple, just two digits,
Yeah.
can be used to create all these complex instructions and data.
Yeah, that's how computers store information, run programs, everything.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it.
Definitely.
So then the poem takes us on this journey of how we've stored information over time. And it starts with early commands swallowed as cards. And it's talking about punched cards.
Punched cards, like those old things with holes in them.
Yeah, those were like the OG way of storing data.
Wow, that seems so tedious.
Oh, totally. Like, imagine having to punch holes in these cards one by one just to like feed a simple program into a computer.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, we're spoiled these days. And then the poem goes on to talk about magnetic tapes, which it describes as uncoiled as infinite bands.
Oh yeah, magnetic tape. That was a big step up from punched cards, right?
Huge. Like
It's a-
suddenly you could store way more data.
Yeah, and that was super important for things like scientific research, businesses, even like early audio and video recording.
Right. And then we get to a phrase that might be a little more familiar, silvery pancakes,
Silvery pancakes, what's that?
hard disk drives.
Oh, hard drives, those like spinning discs.
Remember that like whirring sound they used to make?
Yeah, and that awful clunking sound when they crash.
Oh yeah, those were the days. But seriously, hard drives were another like massive leap forward.
Yeah, you could store even more data and access it way faster.
Exactly. And that paved the way for like personal computers and all the software we have today.
It's crazy how far we've come.
I know, right?
Hmm.
And now we're talking about like terabytes of storage, you know, a tasty bite to a tera, the poem says.
Terabytes. Like, we can fit entire libraries of music and movies on these tiny devices.
It's wild. And all thanks to the evolution of storage technology.
It's pretty incredible.
Okay, but all this data is useless if we can't see it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So the poem also talks about how displays have evolved, and it starts with fluorescing inside, that vitreous abode.
Okay, that one's a little over my head.
Yeah, it sounds fancy, but it's basically talking about those old, bulky CRT monitors.
Oh, CRT monitors, like the ones that were super heavy and took up half your desk.
Yeah, exactly. They were kind of magical, though, you know, that glowing screen bringing, like, worlds to life.
Yeah, I guess they were pretty cool back then.
And then the poem moves on to crystals versus polymers, now to the fore. And that's hinting at LCDs.
LCDs, those flat screen monitors.
Exactly. And those were a game changer. They were so much thinner, lighter.
And they used way less energy too, right?
Yeah, way more energy efficient. And now we have like OLED screens and high definition resolutions.
It's amazing how good displays look these days.
I know, right? Okay, so there's this one line in the poem that I think is really interesting. It says, the key to the joy rests with the board.
The board, like a keyboard.
Not quite. It's talking about motherboards.
Motherboards, those circuit boards inside our computers.
Yeah. And those things are like a marvel of engineering.
Seriously, they're so tiny, but they hold like billions of transistors.
I know, it's crazy to think about. And those tiny boards are what allow our devices to do all the amazing things they do.
Yeah, from running complex programs to displaying like super realistic graphics.
It's pretty mind-blowing. And, the poem ends with this thought-provoking line that mentions Latin numerals or Greeks in their use.
What do you think that means?
I think it's making us think about, like, what's next for the language of computing? Like, are we going to see totally new ways of programming and interacting with machines?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, especially with like AI and machine learning becoming so advanced.
Exactly. Like, how are we going to communicate with these super complex systems in the future? Will we need, like, completely new ways of coding and representing data?
Yeah, who knows what the future holds, but it's exciting to think about.
Right. And, this whole deep dive, this whole journey through the evolution of computing technology, it really makes you appreciate how far we've come.
It really does. Like, what we have today is the result of so much innovation and hard work.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, like, what will be the next big breakthrough? What will computers be like in 50 years? In 100 years?
It's hard to even imagine.
I know, but it's definitely going to be an interesting ride.
Absolutely.
So I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty inspired right now.
Yeah, me too. It's amazing to see what humans can achieve when they put their minds to it.
Totally. And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the one to invent the next groundbreaking technology.
That would be awesome.
It would. Yeah. But for now, I think it's time to unplug and let all this sink in.
Yeah, good idea. I think my brain needs a break after all that.
Mine too. But hey, it was
Yeah.
a good deep dive.
Absolutely. Learned a lot today.
Me too. All right. Well, until next time, happy computing.
See ya.